Hello and welcome to Castle's Corner. I am Coach Castle, and today we're going to talk all about running and running cadence, as well as how to time your respiration to your footfalls for improved running, efficiency, and endurance.
Hello and welcome to Castle's Corner. I am Coach Castle, and I'm here to educate you in the latest science regarding biomechanics, biochemistry, respiratory health, nutrition, and much more. Please remember to subscribe to this channel and like these videos if you find this content helpful. But now, let's go ahead and get into the video.
Cadence is a buzzword around the running community, and it will be part of any coach's vocabulary, which can obviously make it a little bit of intimidating because you don't know what it means. But simply put, cadence is the measure of your stride turnover rate in steps per minute. So in other words, a runner with a cadence of 165 steps per minute is making impact with the ground at 165 times over the span of 1 minute. And why do you care? It's because you don't want to injure yourself, you want to do everything efficiently, and of course you want to improve your endurance and health. Now, poor form can potentially lead to serious injury stemming from additional stress on joints or connective tissue, as well as decreasing your posture, respiration, and many other things. And while there's countless little tweaks that can be made during your quest for the perfect running form, I firmly believe that finding the sweet spot in your cadence range will correct most errors all on its own. But of course, one problem with cadence is that it can be hard to pinpoint exactly what your ideal turnover should be. So while 180 or 180 steps per minute cadence works well for me, the perfect cadence will vary from person to person. Now, based on everything I've read and seen, a healthy range will probably land somewhere between 170 and 190. So, if you find yourself in a lower cadence zone or suspect you are overstriding, consider setting a target of 5 to 8 steps per minute higher than your current cadence. Now, keep in mind that any change to your gait is going to feel uncomfortable, so don't be put off if it seems initially a little unnatural. Soon enough, it will become your new normal, and you can decide if it makes sense to continue to increase further. And once you have your cadence dialed in to what works best for you, then of course you can improve step rate, count, or slow it down depending. Now, roughly 86% of runners breathe at a 2-step inhale and a 2-step exhale pace when tested performing under heavy workloads. Now, this is regardless of whether they had proper training or not. Their bodies would instinctively adapt to this breathing rhythm. So it does seem, however, that inexperienced runners have no particular breathing rhythm. Basically, a large number of factors, basically just they're inexperienced. But more inexperienced runners will deliberately time their inhales and exhales to their stride, whether they're conscious of it or not. Now, this has to do with the human body maximizing a minute volume of air, or the amount of air one can get into and out of their lungs per minute. At a slower pattern, for example, inhaling for 4 steps rather than 2, runners can breathe deeply, but they aren't breathing as quickly. This can decrease minute air volume since the runners are taking fewer breaths per minute. Now, conversely, if the runners were to breathe very fast, perhaps inhaling on one step and exhaling on the other step, it would be quite impossible to breathe deeply as the tidal volume would be quite low. Now, the runners would be moving air through their anatomical dead spaces, such as the nose and the trachea, which cannot absorb oxygen they take in. So it's a very shallow breath, and none of the oxygen that your muscles need is actually being absorbed. So research has consistently shown that for the most part, when running at a hard pace, experienced runners' minute volume of air was at its highest when they were at a 2-2, 2-1, or 1-2 ratio of inhale to exhale breathing pattern. Now, it's important to note that this is at a hard pace. Inhaling and exhaling for longer durations, such as 3 steps or more on each, can be very useful when you're trying to run a slower or more endurance-based run. For example, the first stages of a marathon when you want to conserve your energy. Now, of course, the ability to measure your effort through rhythmic breathing puts you directly in touch with your body, providing immediate feedback and giving you complete control over your effort and your pace. Now, rhythmic breathing can also serve as an inner speedometer, allowing runners to measure their pace and make adjustments to it, whether too easy or too hard. Meaning that if you find a 2-2 or 3-2 breathing pattern effortless, that is an indicator that you can probably run a little bit faster to increase your cadence. Now, if you're struggling to maintain that rhythm, it's a sign that you're probably going too fast of a pace. The solution in this case is to slow down until your breathing and footsteps sync back up. Now, of course, you can always build a stronger link between your turnover rate and your breathing, which brings me to the second part of the equation, which is kind of how we'll be getting into this. So, of course, something else I talk about all the time, breathing. Now, this is probably the point where you roll your eyes and wonder what I could possibly teach you about breathing. I mean, you've been doing it since the moment you were born. But the fact is, 95 to 99% of us in the entire world don't breathe correctly, especially when you exercise and especially when you run. Now, although I primarily want to share how I use my breath to change gears during training and races, I believe that it is imperative to hit on a few breathing fundamentals first, so we're on the same page. I'll be making another video about switching breathing gears, how and why to do so. But for starters, let's just go over some tips for the breathing. For starters, you want to breathe with your belly. If you're sucking in wind with rapid, shallow breathing during your runs, you're completely missing the mark. Listening to your breath from the diaphragm is critical to postponing fatigue and maximizing your endurance. A full exhale will, of course, result in a deep inhale. You may instinctively assume that a full breath begins with the inhale, but in actuality, it's much more important that you focus on your exhale cycles while you're running or performing exercise. So just take a second and give this a try. Forcefully expel all the air from your lungs, and you will notice that as soon as they do, and you reduce the pressure to blow air out, they will automatically inflate again with little effort. So, rather than trying to pull air in and risk a shallow exhale, use your breathing patterns to emphasize the exhale and regulate your oxygen delivery more effectively. Now, don't get me wrong, the inhale is where the magic happens, but without a full exhale, you may, you will never be able to maximize the availability of the oxygen in your lungs. You do it all day, every day, and all night, but how often do you actually think about your breath? Well, you might only be thinking about it when you're 3/4 of the way through a 5K, at the end of a sprint, in the middle of your cardio session, in the middle of lifting weights, or even in the middle of a happy time when you notice you're out of breath. This is not a good thing to have happen. You should be training and be very mindful of your respiratory system and your breath always, so you never run out of gas no matter what you're doing. Now, the amount of oxygen in your blood directly relates to the fatigue you feel when you run. So these supplies start to dwindle the second you start breathing hard. So athletes working to build up their VO2 max, or the maximum rate of oxygen consumption during exercise, to run faster and longer. Proper running breath work improves performance and keeps you from running out of breath. And when you breathe well, you increase your VO2 max. And again, this is the maximum amount of oxygen you can take in at any given time. It measures your energy and efficiency, overall fitness and health. Now, of course, you can affect your heart rate with your breath, both physically and emotionally. The heart pumps in response to the breath, and when you inhale, the heart slows down and the body registers an increased level of carbon dioxide. This causes the nervous system to call for an uptick in breath rate to clear carbon dioxide. Then you exhale. During the exhale breath, as it occurs, the natural speeding up and slowing down of the heart rate in response to oxygen and carbon dioxide. Rhythmic breathing involves matching your steps to your breath, and it's a mindful running skill and a running breathing technique. There are many different kinds of running and breathing rhythms. Now, ultimately, the best rhythm or cadence is the one that feels natural and sustainable to you. When I say breathing rhythm, I am referring to how many steps you would take during the inhale compared to how many you take during the exhale. This is timing your breathing to your steps, also known as your cadence. So for example, if you take 2 steps whilst breathing in, 1, 2, and then 2 steps while breathing out, 1, 2, that's a 2-2 ratio. Now, if this concept still seems a little strange to you, just stand up and go jog around, count your steps as you're jogging, and count your inhales and exhales, and you'll find out what your natural rhythm is at the moment. Now, the relationship of performance in rhythmic breathing is described as how mammals synchronize body movement with breathing patterns to ensure sufficient respiratory flow. Now, this is a process referred to as locomotor respiratory coupling, or LRC testing, you might also see it called. Now, quadrupedal species were observed to synchronize their locomotive and respiratory cycles at a consistent ratio of 1:1 in both the trot and the gallop. Humans, on the other hand, as you know, are bipedal and have been observed using various rhythms, although a 2:1 or 2:2 coupling ratio appears to be favored while under duress. Now, it seems that this may be due to a reduction in the mechanical constraints on respiration as a result, basically, of standing up on two legs, allowing greater flexibility in breathing patterns, or the ability to shift gears, as I previously mentioned. Another video on that later, guys. Now, of course, elite athlete, marathon runners utilize a cadence of 190 and even greater. Now, when you watch them, they don't look like they're running very fast, but in reality, they're moving very rapidly. Their steps are touching rapid contact with the ground, and they're just going really fast. Now, this rapid pace keeps them from overstriding and keeps them from their running form basically from breaking down. Basically, there's a lot less wasted motion and energy in a rapid running cadence. It's all about efficiency of movement, using gravity to your advantage, and really not overstriding in all essence. You want to keep moving forward at a flowing pace. Now, for myself, when I establish my cadence, I pay attention to my breath the most. So for each inhale, I count 3 steps, and then 2 for each exhale. Now, in my head, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. You get the idea. Now, at a 180 or 190 cadence, I'm comfortably getting my lungs full and expelled in a very rhythmic pattern of 2-2. The deep inhale comes all the way from my belly or my diaphragm, and the quick exhale clears all the carbon dioxide, making room for the next deep breath, where I'm once again fully inflating as much as I can in those 2 steps. Now, diaphragmatic breathing is more efficient because it allows more oxygen into the lower lobes of your lungs. And this is where the greatest amount of blood flow occurs, thus more oxygen and better delivery of nutrients to those tissues. Rapid, shallow chest breathing, or vertical breathing, results in less oxygen. And this also creates a stressful state, and this can lead to quicker fatigue, cramps, muscle aches, particularly in the neck, shoulders, and abdominals. Now, of course, I recommend my clients practice diaphragmatic breathing at home. After a little while, they're just kind of mindful of it throughout their lives, and their breathing pattern's correct. But just so you know, a simple test is to put one hand on your diaphragm, the other on your chest, and just the diaphragm hand should be moving in and out, and the chest hand should not be moving. If you are doing that, then you're breathing mostly correctly. Simple enough. I have other videos on this, check them out if you like, guys. But again, one of the most effective ways to incorporate this breath timing into your running or your cardio routine is by using a very common meditation technique, which of course is to pay attention to your breath and to repeat a mantra or repeated words or phrases to help you do it. So using a mantra can also help you to find a groove that connects your breathing with your foot strikes in an alternating fashion, and even heighten the meditative effect of using the said breathing pattern you're currently applying. So if you're running at 7 footfalls per breath cycle, you can use a mantra to help you know when to breathe in and when to breathe out instead of simply counting numbers. So for example, on the inhale, you could go, now I breathe in, now I breathe out. So that's 4 syllables in the first line, matching up with 4 footfalls, and 3 syllables in the second line, matching up with 3 footfalls. Then you can immediately start the first line again for your next footfall, just kind of repeating that mantra. Now you could use this, or obviously if you're running at 5 footfalls rather than 7 footfalls per breath cycle, try now breathe in, inhale, now out, exhale. 3 footfalls per breath cycle would be breathe in, out. And you can also make up your own breathing mantras with things that particularly matter, resonate, they're personal with you, you feel a deeper connection with them. But just try it. Next time you go for a run, try out different phases. I don't know, share the ones you like in the comments if you guys happen to have any. And of course, just remember, don't be frustrated if you initially begin to feel out of breath. If it becomes too much, drop back to your default breathing pattern for a few minutes, give it another try, completely stop the jog, walk for a minute, reset. It's all good. It might feel awkward at first, but before long it will become second nature and much more efficient. Now the key is just simply figuring out what pattern works best for you. So I hope this video helps, guys, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Make sure you check out my other videos. Every little bit counts. Don't forget, get your finger exercise in and help me out at the same time. Like, share, comment, and subscribe.